Part 1. The Midnight Rain on the Windshield. Take a deep, slow breath, my friend. Let it out slowly. Pull the blankets up a little closer, settle into the deepest warmth of your bed, and allow the heavy, chaotic noise of the world's endless interstates to fade away completely outside your window tonight. The frantic rush of the day is over, and the dark, quiet highway of the night has finally arrived. Tonight, you can rest your tired hands. Tonight, you are not the one sitting behind the steering wheel, watching the white lines fly past under the lonely headlights. Tonight, you are riding shotgun with me. You are completely safe, tucked away inside the amber, nostalgic glow of our industrial sanctuary. Look closely at the screen in front of you. Can you smell it? That timeless, honest scent of hot iron, burnt grease, and raw, unyielding steel. Look at the mesmerizing, almost hypnotic dance of the welding sparks as they cascade like falling stars across the workshop floor of the ASEAN factory. There is a deep, ancient poetry in those sparks, a silent language of heat and labor that tells a story much older than the asphalt of the highways themselves, older even than the very concept of the modern trucks we love. Tell me, have you ever stopped to truly look at a standard shipping container? To the rest of the busy, modern world, it is nothing more than a cold, unfeeling, rectangular box of corrugated metal. It sits forgotten in the dark corners of busy shipyards, or gets dragged down the highway behind a roaring diesel engine, looking like the most boring, ordinary object on the face of the earth. But to people like you and me, to those who truly understand the deep, structural heartbeat of global progress, that simple steel box is not boring at all. It is a masterpiece. It is a rugged, heavy metal symphony of human ingenuity, and above all, it is a magnificent monument to a single man's absolute, beautiful stubbornness. Tonight, as the gentle rhythm of the rain outside mirrors the steady tap of the mechanic's hammer against the iron beams, we are going to step out of the present day. We are going to turn back the hands of the clock, traveling through the fog of memory to an era when things were made to last, when the roads of the world were a little rougher, the engines were far simpler, and a truck driver had nothing but his own grit to rely on. We are going back to a time when one ordinary country boy, sitting in a cold, leaking truck cabin, looked out through a foggy windshield and decided he was going to trap the entire global economy inside a steel box. So lean back, relax your mind, and let the flickering lights of the welding torch guide your soul back in time. Let the journey begin. Part 2. The Epiphany of a Country Boy. It was the year 1937 at a bustling, chaotic dock in Hoboken, New Jersey. The winter air was thick with the bitter chill of the Atlantic, carrying the heavy scents of salt water, wet hemp ropes, coal smoke, and the unmistakable aroma of stale coffee drifting from the harbor diners. A young 23-year-old truck driver named Malcom McLean sat quietly in the cramped, freezing cabin of his second-hand truck. The vehicle was nothing like the luxurious highway cruisers we see on the interstates today. It was a rough, unforgiving machine built of brutal iron and unyielding wood. Inside that tiny cabin, Malcolm rubbed his hands together, trying to coax some warmth back into his fingers. His palms were rough, heavily calloused from hours of gripping the massive, unassisted steering wheel through sharp turns and muddy roads. His back ached with a deep, throbbing soreness, a familiar protest from his muscles after sitting for days on the stiff springs and leather seats of that early trucking era. He was just a country boy from North Carolina, a young man trying to carve out a living in a world that was still recovering from the crushing weight of the Great Depression. Behind his small truck, he carried a heavy, precious load of cotton pockets, stacked meticulously and tied down with thick ropes, waiting anxiously to be transferred onto a massive cargo ship bound for distant shores. Hour after agonizing hour, Malcolm just sat there and watched. He had no choice but to wait. Through the fogged-up glass of his windshield, wiped clear by a swipe of his sleeve, he watched the longshoremen working on the crowded wooden pier. He watched them methodically, painfully packing the insatiable belly of the ship. It was a brutal, primitive process. One single sack at a time, one heavy wooden crate at a time. Men with iron hooks strapped to their hands swung their bodies into the cargo bays, lifting, carrying, and stacking every single piece of freight by hand. It was a chaotic, beautiful, yet agonizingly slow ballet of pure human sweat, strained muscles, and coarse shouting. To load a single vessel required hundreds of men working for days on end, a dangerous dance where one slipped foot or one snapped rope could mean disaster. Malcolm stared at his dashboard clock, watching the minutes bleed into hours and the hours turn into days. He began to calculate the math of his own survival. His truck, the very tool he used to feed his family, had been sitting completely idle on that pier for 36 straight hours. In the unyielding laws of the trucking business, a wheel that is not turning is a wheel that is not making a single dime. Every tick of the clock was money slipping through his calloused fingers, swallowed up by a port system that had not changed since the days of ancient wooden sailing ships. And then, as the cold, relentless rain drummed a steady, hypnotic rhythm on his truck's tin roof, a wild, dangerous, and revolutionary thought sparked in the quiet corners of his mind. It was a thought that defied everything the maritime industry had practiced for thousands of years. He looked at the massive wooden crates being lifted by ropes, and then he looked back at the rectangular wooden body of his own trailer. He thought to himself, why in God's name are we doing this? Why are we spending days unpacking a truck just to pack the exact same items into the belly of a ship, only to unpack them again when the ship reaches its destination? Why can't we just lift the entire trailer body, the whole damn box, cargo and all, and drop it directly onto the deck of the ship? It was an idea born not from a boardroom or an engineering laboratory, but from pure, unadulterated impatience. It was the frustration of a hard-working man who refused to accept that inefficiency was just the way things had to be. He envisioned a world where a truck and a ship could speak the same structural language, where the boundaries between the asphalt road and the open ocean could be completely erased by a single standardized container. It was a thought born of pure impatience, a simple spark of frustration in the dark of a rainy midnight. But as you sit comfortably in the warmth of your room tonight, watching the skilled craftsmen in our workshop aligning the heavy, towering steel dam rails of these modern chassis, I want you to remember this timeless truth. Every great machine that carries our world forward, every massive bridge, every roaring engine, and every giant container trailer began because someone, somewhere, got absolutely tired of doing things the hard way. They looked at the old world, looked at the exhausting labor of their ancestors, and chose to build a better path. Malcom McLean was just a truck driver with a high school education, sitting in the rain, but his impatience was about to unlock the gears of modern civilization. The iron you see being welded on your screen tonight is the direct descendant of that midnight thought in 1937, a legacy of steel built to ensure that the wheels of the world never have to stand still again. They laughed at him. They laughed with a cold, arrogant certainty that only the deeply entrenched rulers of an old empire could possess. The wealthy shipping barons who had controlled the Atlantic trade for generations, the powerful railroad kings who owned the very iron tracks splitting the American continent, and the fiercely protective leaders of the dock workers' unions. They all stood in their high offices and on their crowded piers, and they laughed straight into the face of Malcom McLean. To them, he was nothing more than an uneducated, overambitious country trucker who simply did not know his proper place in the grand machinery of commerce. They looked at his rough hands, his grease-stained jacket, and they told him with absolute authority that he was chasing a fool's errand. They told him that ships belonged exclusively to the endless, unpredictable blue of the sea, and trucks belonged firmly to the hard, unyielding black of the asphalt, and the two would never, under any circumstance, marry. They believed the ancient laws of global trade were written in stone, and that no lone driver from North Carolina could ever rewrite the rules of the ocean. But what the kings of the old world failed to realize was that Malcom McLean was not a man who bent under the weight of mockery. He was made of the exact same unyielding, heavy-duty carbon steel that you see being shaped, pressed, and forced into form by the massive hydraulic machinery on your screen right now. The more they told him it was impossible, the deeper his roots sank into his vision. You see, Malcom didn't just want to build a simple metal box. He realized with terrifying clarity that he had to invent an entirely new world from scratch. A box on its own was useless if the world around it was built for sacks and barrels. He had to become an engineer of an unseen future. He needed to design a revolutionary box that was light enough to be pulled by a standard truck engine, yet strong enough to be stacked 5 stories high in the dark, swaying belly of a cargo ship without crushing the precious freight hidden beneath the bottom layer. He needed to engineer custom reinforced corners that could lock instantly with absolute mathematical precision, securing thousands of tons of cargo under the brutal, twisting pressure of a rolling Atlantic sea storm. He needed to reinvent the very concept of the trailer chassis, a specialized highway cruiser that could roll down the interstate at 60 miles an hour and then transform into a perfectly balanced ship's pocket in less than 2 minutes under the hook of a harbor crane. To build this dream, Malcom had to play a game of chess against the entire world, and the stakes were nothing less than total ruin. He knew that if he moved too slow, the railroad empires would crush him before he ever reached the coast. So he did the unthinkable. He stood before his family, his partners, and his accountants, and he made the most terrifying gamble of his life. He decided to mortgage everything he had ever built. He sold his beloved multi-million-dollar trucking corporation, a massive, thriving empire that he had built from a single second-hand pickup truck into the second-largest transport company in the entire United States. He walked away from safety, wealth, and the guaranteed respect of his peers just to buy 2 aging, rusted, forgotten World War II oil tankers that most shipping experts considered little more than floating scrap metal. His friends thought he had lost his mind. His competitors smiled, waiting to watch his spectacular downfall. He was a lone man standing on the absolute edge of a sheer cliff, looking down into the abyss of bankruptcy, betting his entire life, his family's future, and every single dime he had ever earned on nothing more than the structural integrity of a single engineering weld. As you watch the brilliant blue light of the welding arc on your screen tonight, illuminating the dark, quiet corners of our workshop, take a moment to look at the sheer density of the metal being joined together. Think about the invisible pressure holding those seams in place. That is the exact kind of pressure Malcom McLean lived with every single day during those dark years of trial and rejection. Every door was slammed in his face. Every bank told him his ships would capsize under the weight of the containers. Every labor union threatened to shut down the ports if his steel boxes ever touched the docks. He had no blueprint to follow, no historical precedent to give him comfort, and absolutely no guarantee of success. He was surrounded by cynics who wanted nothing more than to see the status quo remain unbroken. But like the master welders working late into the night on the factory floor, Malcom knew that the strongest bonds are formed in the highest heat. He knew that the laughter of the world would eventually fade, and that when the smoke finally cleared, only the strength of the iron and the truth of his vision would remain standing on the horizon. Part 4, April 26, 1956, the spark that ignited modernity. The morning of April 26, 1956, broke with a heavy, suffocating stillness over Port Newark, New Jersey. The sky was an unforgiving sheet of overcast gray, casting a bleak and somber light across the dark, oily waters of the harbor. A cold, damp wind swept off the Atlantic, carrying a bitter chill that bit through the coats of the large crowd gathering on the concrete pier. They were all there, the wealthy shipping executives in their tailored wool suits, the old guard port authorities, the skeptical engineers, and the hostile union bosses. They stood shoulder to shoulder, their arms crossed, their faces hardened with a cynical, mocking expectation. They had traveled to this desolate pier not to witness a triumph, but to watch an execution. They had come to laugh at the final, desperate act of a crazy trucker. Docked tightly against the wooden pilings of the pier was the Ideal X, a scarred, rusted World War II oil tanker. She looked profoundly out of place, a floating ghost of the past, upon whose upper deck Malcom's team had bolted a strange, skeletal framework of newly welded steel beams, a cold iron cage designed to hold a dream that the rest of the world called madness. Suddenly, breaking the tense silence of the harbor, a massive crane groaned. The heavy diesel engine roared to life, sending a plume of black smoke into the gray sky as its steel cables tensed with immense pressure. The crane reached down toward the pier, where a pristine, custom-built, 26-foot steel container sat waiting on the back of a rugged truck chassis. The heavy iron hooks of the crane lowered, aligning perfectly with the reinforced corners of the box, and locked into place with a sharp, echoing snap. The operator pulled the levers. With a deep straining cry of metal, the crane hoisted the massive steel box into the air. In that exact fraction of a second, the crowd on the pier went dead silent. The cynical murmurs died instantly in their throats. Every eye was locked onto the sky. The box dangled precariously against the vast, gray emptiness of the clouds, swaying gently in the cold Atlantic wind. It was a terrifying, beautiful sight, the entire future of global trade hanging by a thread of steel. Then, slowly, deliberately, the crane swung its massive arm over the ship. The cables rolled out, and the box lowered through the damp air, landing with a heavy, thunderous, and profoundly satisfying clank directly into the freshly welded skeleton of the ship's deck. The vibration traveled through the iron hull, through the concrete pier, and straight into the soles of the shoes of every man watching. The world had just shifted on its axis. "57 times that day, the crane repeated its industrial song. 57 times It reached down to a waiting truck, lifted a standardized steel box, and swung it gracefully onto the deck of the Ideal X. With every single clank of a container locking into place, the old world was systematically dismantled. By the time the sun began to set behind the heavy clouds of New Jersey, the impossible had been achieved. In that one single historic afternoon, the mathematics of human survival were rewritten forever. The cost of loading cargo onto a ship dropped instantly from a staggering $5.83 a ton down to a mere 16 cents. It was a drop so massive, so revolutionary, that it defied comprehension. But Malcom McLean hadn't just saved a few dollars for corporate balance sheets. He had shattered the ancient clock of human distance. With those 57 boxes, the vast, terrifying oceans of the world suddenly shrunk into small, manageable blue lines on a map. Distance was no longer measured in miles or days of agonizing human labor. It was now measured in the simple, mechanical efficiency of a standardized connection. The poor country boy from North Carolina, the humble truck driver who had sat in the midnight rain 20 years earlier, had just boxed the entire world. He had taken the chaotic mess of global trade and forced it into a perfect, orderly steel rectangle. Look around you tonight. The cheap consumer goods sitting on the shelves of your home, the raw, heavy steel plates being cut by the automated machines in our factory, the very computer or smart television you are using to watch this video right now, they do not exist because of a boardroom decision or a modern government program. They exist because 57 steel boxes were loaded onto a rusted oil tanker on a rainy, overcast April morning in 1956. Every time you see a truck rolling down the highway, every time you hear the deep rumble of a freight train in the distance, you are listening to the echo of Malcolm's triumph. It was the day that iron, fire, and a trucker's stubbornness gave birth to the modern world, proving once and for all that when a man refuses to let his wheels stand still, there is no ocean wide enough to stop him. Part 5. The Quiet Symphony of Iron and Labor. As our incredible journey through the life of Malcom McLean comes to a gentle close, take a moment to look closely at the glowing amber lights stretching across the quiet floor of the factory. The heavy, roaring machines that dominated the daytime hours are finally slowing down, their metallic pulses shifting into a restful hum. The intense heat of the afternoon labor is nearing its natural end, giving way to the cool, peaceful stillness of the midnight shift. Yet, even as the shadows lengthen against the towering metal walls, you can feel that the timeless spirit of true human craftsmanship remains completely untouched by the passage of decades. The very same stubborn dedication, the exact same unyielding grit that Malcom poured into the engineering of his very first steel box so long ago still lives on tonight. It breathes within the calloused hands, the focused eyes, and the steady, patient movements of the quiet workers who stand over the steel beams, meticulously welding these massive highway trailers together in the dark. They do not ask for applause, and their names will never be carved into history books, but they are the true, unsung poets of the modern highway. With every strike of a hammer and every brilliant flash of heat, they are handcrafting the mighty iron horses that silently keep the lifeblood of our global economy moving forward while the rest of the world is fast asleep. Think about the vast, invisible network of steel and rubber that binds our continents together as you watch those final, cooling sparks drift lazily toward the concrete floor. Every highway you have ever driven, every cargo ship crossing the dark horizon of the sea, and every package that arrives at your doorstep relies entirely on this quiet, foundational labor of fire and iron. It is a profound, comforting cycle of human effort that has been turning for nearly a century, guarding our survival and ensuring our comfort. If this nostalgic journey through the fog of time and the raw beauty of heavy machinery has brought a genuine sense of peace, comfort, and relaxation to your evening, please consider hitting that subscribe button and leaving a quiet comment down below before you close your eyes. Share with me your own personal memories of the open road, the long nights spent behind a steering wheel, or perhaps the unforgettable story of your very first days working in a mechanic shop with your own hands. It is your beautiful presence, your quiet late-night viewership on these screens that keeps this industrial sanctuary alive and turning week after week. The main shop lights are dimming down to nothing now, casting the heavy iron beam rails and the sleeping tools into a deep, protective slumber. The long, open highway stretching out ahead of your life is perfectly clear, completely calm, and absolutely quiet tonight. There are no more heavy loads to tie down, no more logs to log, and no more deadlines to chase until the morning sun rises. You have done your part. You have finished the hard day's work, and the highway has finally granted you its blessing to rest. Thank you so much for stepping into our workshop, for leaving the chaos of the world behind, and for riding shotgun with me through the brilliant history of the boxes that built tomorrow. It has been an honor to share this quiet cab with you. Rest your tired eyes now, traveler. Let go of the steering wheel. Safe travels into your dreams, and good night.